Hi there everybody, it's Chris van die Kerk here at Blue Rhino Safaris. So we are talking about power systems on camping vehicles, and I've spent the last 2-3 weeks working on a little bit of a data set on my fridges, just to be able to give you an understanding of power consumption when it comes to fridges and camping equipment. So the components we were talking about were the portion that removes power from our system. And if we can understand what this does, then we can understand what we need on the other side. So our consumption, firstly, is the important part in any equation. Once we've got the consumption, we can start looking at batteries. So in this presentation, I basically have an example to show you where the batteries ultimately will end up. So firstly, the base data that I collected, it was 18 degrees Celsius. I only measured it from 4 p.m. In the afternoon until 8 in the morning. That typically would be the time that we arrive in camp and there's no more charging happening. So you're relying on batteries all the way through to 8 o'clock in the morning. We start the vehicles and we're on the road again. So the power consumption for 16 hours. And what I did was I loaded a 90 liter. The fridge side was empty. The freezer side had 10 kilograms of goods in. The 60 liter, 10 kilograms of goods in. And the Indel B 19 liters, where I mentioned it, it had 5 liters of water in it. And so they were loaded to an extent. So the fridges weren't empty, but they were not completely full. They were more or less where you would expect them to be if you were running. So if you look at this graph, this is the base data I got. The 60 liter is the bottom line, the purple one. It performed the best of the lot. And at 3 degrees, right at the bottom axle, 3 degrees, it was consuming about 12 amps, 12 amp hours. Then at 12 degrees, it was using about 16-17 amp hours. And then at minus 22 degrees, this is the setting of the fridge, minus 22, it was using about 32. So you can work out the delta T's if you want to. But this is just to give you an idea. If you set your fridge at minus 7, it would be using about 17 to 18 amp hours through the night. The light blue line was a little bit heavier on juice because it's a 90 liter. They're not as well insulated, and it also had the fridge running on the side, which automatically has to run as well. So they were closer together than I thought they would be, but there's the detail. The Indel B is the green line. That's just a little plastic fridge, very good fridge, but it's only a plastic fridge, and it is a 19 liter. So let's look at the results that we got firstly. So the black lines at the bottom, the arrows indicate the batteries. A black line is a lead acid battery, and the pink line, the purple line, is the lithium iron phosphate batteries. So the first arrow, the long one you see here, is the first battery you have. And then if you had to have a second battery, you would have it to give you capacity up to the second point. You'll see it a little bit further on the explanation. So the first thing that I have is I've got lights at about 4 amp hours through the night, and then chargers and maybe a laptop and iPad and iPhones and things that you do about 6 amp hours in the night. And that's constant throughout the whole system. The only thing that changes is the fridges itself. So here we have National Luna 90 liter at minus 17, and it gives you amp hours through the night that sits at around 40. Then National Luna 90 liters at minus 12, and that gives me about 32. And then I have National Luna at minus 7. And that gives me about 29. So you can see the temperature, the colder I set it, the more power it uses. So this is at the bottom is your amp hours that it used from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. If we go to the National Luna 60 liter, I did exactly the same. National Luna 60 at minus 17, at minus 12, and at minus 7. And you can see it's slightly less than the 90 liter, but it's in the same vicinity. Then if I go to the National Luna minus 17, and I add the National Luna 60 at minus 17. So I now have 2 fridges running, the 90 and the 60, both at minus 17. You can see my total amps that I drew on that one is at about 63, 64. Now the black arrow shows you where the battery capacity is at 50%. So one battery is not good enough. I have to then have a second battery because one cannot handle that fridge. The second last line, National Lunar 90 at -7 and the 60 at -7. So I took both of them and I dropped the temperature to -7 and not 17. And immediately you can see you can now get away with one battery on both of them at that -7 level. This is just to get you through the night, 4 p.m. to 8 a.m. Then the last line there is a -7 and a -12. Some people like to use a small freezer as a deep freeze, so it uses a little bit more power than the other one. Now if I add a microwave to the whole system, and this microwave is 20 minutes, 1000 watts. So if I have an inverter and I run 1000 watts for 20 minutes, then this is what's going to do. And you can clearly see the microwave pushes me over the one battery for the night. I can't get away with just one battery. So National Lunar 90 liter at -12 plus a microwave is the second last line. National Lunar 60 at -7 plus a microwave is the last line there. And so we go through the system with different configurations giving us different results. Here you can see the worst line of the lot, National Lunar 90 -7 plus the National Lunar 60 at -12 plus a microwave, and that gives me about 70 amp hours. So there clearly the first battery is not sufficient. The second battery is by the second black line, and that means that I definitely would have to go for the second one to keep everything inside the system. And then if I go big and I say National Lunar 60 at -12 plus a little Indel B that I have, plus I now want to freeze 3 liters of ice during the night. I did that calculation as well. It takes about 40 amp hours to freeze 3 liters of water to -15 or -12. So, and I also use a microwave now that I have that bottom line. And you can clearly see one battery is not enough. 2 batteries is not enough. You have to now go to the third one. Lithium is just as good as the 2, so it's not quite good enough for that. You'll have to have a second one as well. And that is the scenario at the bottom line. So you can have a look at these different scenarios and say, well, I fit in more or less with this. This is how I normally would run my system. And then you can see what happens. So let's say I don't have a charge and we sleep for 2 nights and we take the day off. So we're not driving anywhere, you don't have a solar power out, and let's see what we get. Again, the National Lunar 90s firstly. Now I need a second battery. So on the 90 at -17, it's too much. I already need the third battery. So this is 2 nights, 1 off day, no driving, no 220 volt, nothing. You're just relying on batteries here. So the National Lunar 60s are alright. They just make it inside of a single lithium or 2 lead acid batteries. If I run both National Lunar 90 and 60 at -17, puts me out right all the way to almost 4 batteries that I require. Moving further down, if I start running microwaves. So you can get away with the 60s if you only have one fridge and you have the 60s or even the 90s, but you keep the temperatures at -7 or -12, you can still get away with a single battery or 2 batteries. Single battery doesn't work for anything over here. If you're freezing stuff and you're running a microwave and you have 2 fridges, then you're always looking at 4 batteries, lead acid, or otherwise 2 lithiums in this case. So this is the day that we are not driving anywhere, we are chilling and there's no sun out. Then maybe we're lucky and you have 160 watt solar, the sun is out. So it is the same example as the previous one, but this time I've deducted solar because we have solar during the day. But I went with a 50% efficiency, so only 52 amp hours that was replaced. So if we go through the system, if I had one battery, I would just make it for my first 6 lines. So the National Lunar is a single fridge or running as a freezer, one battery would just have made it. But as soon as I add a second one, now that single battery is not enough. I have to go to a second battery and even a third battery if I'm running -17. Then if I run 2 batteries plus a microwave, or two fridges plus a microwave, there you can see the bottom line I'm onto. I actually need 3 batteries. Even with a 160 watt solar, I need 3 batteries to survive that situation. And then if you go a little bit further, National Lunar 60 at -12, a little fridge as well. The Indel B is sitting at +3, so it's just a fridge and a freezer. But I'm freezing some ice for the gin and tonics, and I'm using a microwave to help cook my food. I'm back to 3 batteries required again. So this is where I am standing for 2 nights, day off, but I've got the solar panel out, and I'm getting about half the efficiency, 52 amp hours. This is the result that you get. Now, if we look at a typical example, if we're traveling, and I say, cool, let's look at the 24-hour cycle. So if you wake up in the morning, 8 o'clock, ready to go, day 1. After the total cycle, this is more or less where you sit. You have about your first battery basically covers what needs to be covered, and if you had 2 fridges, then you would go to that second black line, which is your second battery. But you can basically see where you fit in on this one on a 24-hour cycle. So it's day 1, 8 o'clock in the morning. Most of the lights will be at 50%. So you have 3 or 4 yellow lights on your battery display remaining. Things are good. Let's go. Go for a drive. And 4 o'clock in the evening with a 5-hour drive the previous day. It's actually 5 hours. Everything has been charged fully except for the 2 -17 freezers. If I'm running 2 at -17, if I'm using microwave with 2 fridges, microwave and 2 fridges or freezers, then I am now looking for trouble. So these blue lines represent the residual power that I have not recharged. So I'm in trouble on those lines. Day 2, 8 o'clock in the morning. As I said, it was actually a 5-hour drive the previous day. Then we're looking like this. So 5 hours gave us, and I said at 20 amp hours per hour. So 5 hours drive would have, I calculated 100 amps that we replaced. So 8 o'clock on day 2, where are we? So you can see that the top fridges are struggling just a little bit, and most of us would actually need to have had a second battery. So 8 o'clock, day 5, we're running into a little bit of trouble, but we're going to drive now. So let's say those first lines you are seeing 3 or 2 yellow lights, so the battery still looks good. There's no reds that's blinking, so we think everything is still lacquer. So let's go. But we drive for 4 hours, and the next morning at 8 o'clock, this is the situation that we see ourselves. The top ones still remain fairly solid because we can replace the power more or less every day that we use. So if you have a single fridge, then you'll be good. But the moment you go into 2 fridges, you need to have 2 batteries. And if you're running at -17, you need 3 or 4 batteries. So you probably rather go for a -7 setting if you have 2 freezers, things like that. At the bottom, the National Lunar -12 plus the Indel B at +3, plus I'm freezing 3 liters of water in the night, and I'm using a microwave. I need 5 batteries already. So on day 4, if we repeat that cycle, it's just getting worse. So you can see the guys that are using too much power just cannot catch up with anything. They have a runaway train, because if we only drive 4 hours a day, you can see the guys that have the single fridges, they are still more or less where they need to be. So they still have 2 or 3 lights, it's still alright. But the guys with the 2 fridges or 2 freezers, or using a microwave or freezing water, those are the ones that runs into trouble because of a shortage of electricity that charges. So on day 5, 8 o'clock, 4 hours driving, this is the obvious place where we are. So you can clearly see that I normally say to people 2 fridges, 2 batteries if you talk lead acid. 3 fridges, 3 batteries. But if you start using a microwave and you start freezing stuff, then you are consuming a lot of energy from your batteries. So they cannot get the time to recover themselves. Now driving, I said 4 hours, and I work on 20 amp hours per hour for driving that you're adding back into the system. So again, have a look at this. If you were on day 5, 8 o'clock in the morning on one of my trips, and we were in, let's say, Kagalagadi, because these are typical times for Kagalagadi, we don't drive a lot, then you would be seeing this. So the guys with the 2 fridges, if you only had 1 battery, you would be dead in the water already. If you had 2 batteries, then it's touch and go. Whether you have a microwave, or you're freezing stuff, or you're putting beers in the fridge to keep it cold, those things are all using power. And that will give you an idea of what the consumption is when we are out in the bush, and how we are replacing it, and why on day 2, day 3, day 4 we start getting the red lights. So if someone was running, take this middle line for example, a minus 17 or minus 15 90 liter and a minus 15 60 liter, they would have had red lights blinking already on day 3, because the car just cannot get to catch up with the consumption that you have on your freezers. That's why I always say, if you want to save some power, take your fridge temperature down, take it to minus 7. Minus 7 is good enough. And yeah, you can see it, the National Luna minus 17 in the middle, and National Luna 60 minus 17. So if both freezers are running at minus 17, I have a consumption of about 200. If both of them are running at minus 7, I have a consumption of about 75. Of not consumption, but the requirement on the day. So I can easily get away with 2 batteries if I was running at minus 7. But if I'm running at minus 17, I have trouble. Same with the microwave, same with freezing stuff. So I hope this helps you to understand the consumption side of different combinations of freezers and fridges, and what effect it has over time. So let me know if you have any questions or any concerns about your system, and work on this and see if you can get away with saving your batteries as much as you can. The alternative always, as you can see at the bottom, the pink is the lithium ion phosphate batteries. You have the first battery at 90 amp hours, the second battery at 180. So they're a lot lighter, and instead of having 4 batteries in this case, you would only have 2. And they would basically give you the same result as 4 lead acid batteries. So price wise, it ultimately costs the same. 4 lead acids versus 2 lithiums, a little bit more expensive, but the lithiums will last you 10 years. So yeah, if you have any issues, or if you want to order a lithium battery, just to help with this situation, let me know and we can make a plan. I hope this helped. Thanks for watching. Cheers.